and welcome to the Little Minds Big Ideas podcast with the Early Years Network. Back on another Monday.
And it's warm today. I like to update people on the temperature of this room.
We're recording this. Take a guess at what day we're recording this on, because there's not that many warm days at the moment. Have a guess. We've got another topic of conversation to throw ourselves into. It is going to link to early years, but it's also going to talk a little bit more about wider society and sort of older children as
This one took us a while to plan, more than any other one, I think.
Yeah, it did. It's an interesting one to kind of get our heads around what we actually wanted.
Because we popped this one in the bin, and then we took it out of the bin.
Yes.
And then we decided to record it anyway.
It only was in the bin for about 30 seconds.
I know, but it was in the bin.
Yeah, in room 101.
Oh, shall I talk about the room 101? Is everybody be on tender hooks?
The polls have come in.
Oh, should we just check it, like, final confirmation? Or will it be dead now?
I don't know.
So I check? Bear with me.
This is good.
You can keep talking.
Okay. So, I did a poll for my three
it's gone.
suggestions.
How do I get it
It's
back?
gone. Okay, well, we know what was at one.
Well, yeah, okay, unless there was a late swing.
I doubt it.
It was.
Out of my three choices of pull-ups, negativity in front of the children, and laced shoes, pull-ups won my vote. Shocking turn of events.
Dun, dun, dun. Not
there
shoelaces.
was a lot
I think
of
shoelaces
comments.
came last in the end.
There's a lot of comments on the TikTok video about everybody understanding.
Do you know what got spoken about the most in the comments?
Dungarees.
Dungos.
Yeah, I didn't think. Well, we did talk about unpractical clothing, but yeah, dungarees. That is a pain in the bum.
Both on TikTok and Instagram, dungos.
They did come. Dungos.
Dungos.
Sorry. And from Ben's, we had overprotection, lifeguarding children, and unnecessary
Offset complaints.
complaints.
Not unnecessary. You keep saying unnecessary.
No, what's the word?
I mean, like malicious, like
Malicious, that
fictitious
was it.
complaints.
Yeah, and it was Ofsted that would win that one.
It was.
Do we feel we need to do a final?
I think we need to do one.
Okay, there'll be one more
After
for
this,
you.
we need to do a poll off
Yeah.
on Monday
It'll be
afternoon.
Monday. Oh, it's going to be dragging on.
But we need a poll off.
Okay, we'll do a poll off. It'll be pull-ups or
Malicious
Ofsted complaints.
I'm glad lifeguarding didn't come in last. Like, so everybody who voted for lifeguard, you're the real ones.
Shut up. Idiot.
You're the real ones out there.
So that
You
was
know
room 101.
who you are, and you can just be proud of yourself.
Well done, yes. I can't believe Shoelaces didn't win.
Shoelaces got less than lifeguarding in the end.
It did.
Shout out lifeguarding.
Right. New on the platform.
Woo!
New on the platform, we've got 3 more social stories have just gone live on the de-escalation class. So the first link will take you to the folder with 4 social stories.
And which
in them.
ones are they? What are these social stories?
There is a social story on lunchtime,
Cool.
going to nursery,
Going to nursery.
kind hands,
Kind hands.
and personal space. So there's 4. If there's any other specific topics people want, let me know and we can create some more.
Well, the nice thing is you can just keep adding them into that folder.
Yeah, yeah.
So anybody can access via that class.
Yes,
that folder.
exactly.
Because we weren't sure if the folder drop-in was going to work, were we?
But it does.
But it does, which means we can add
tested it.
way more onto each of these classes, to be honest.
But in terms of the social stories, it is nice when they're personalised. So if anybody needs anything doing more generalised, they can do a biting one, we can do sharing, let me know and I can get those created.
Not a problem.
You guys are listening to this on Monday, so the resources on the baby movement class will be live. Not 100% sure how many there's going to be at this point, but they will be up when the podcast goes live.
Just keep populating them over the next week.
Yeah, exactly. So you'll be able to look at those from Olivia's brand new class. And then Ben has been working on some new classes, potentially a 3-part series.
Yeah, we'll see. It's still in the planning phase. By the time you listen to this, I'll probably have moved into like the recording stage next week. Time being well. Likelihood is I'll get it recorded late next week and then into production the week after in terms of editing, chopping up. So in the next couple of weeks, it will come live. And I'm trying to do it I'm trying to deliver a class all about the brain and understanding how the brain works in a friendly as possible way without it becoming a science class, if that makes sense. So that's what's taking the time at the moment. How can I word it and deliver it that it'll be meaningful for early years? And I almost want to build it in a 3-part series so I can tackle the basics of the brain and how we understand it, then move into behavior, and then move into learning. And if that works, then that's probably how I'll go about it. Just so it's not, I'm not throwing too much information at people in one. I think sitting down and going, right, let me understand the fundamentals. All right, let's leave that for a bit. Let me go and understand now how that affects behavior, and then let me understand how that affects learning in the early years and beyond. And really, it's this class I'm designing almost to tag into a level 3. I think the bit that is always, I think, missing from a level 3.
Yeah.
You know, you can look at it and go, it's science, but it's the basic understanding of how brains are built and developed and effectively wired, and how our role is so important in that process. So,
yeah,
I think it'll be a really crucial and integral class on our platform, to be honest.
Yeah, lovely. And if you've not checked out theearlyearsnetwork.co.uk, have a little look. Go and check us out, what we do over there all the time.
Forever growing.
Forever growing, yes. Now, new in the news.
In the news.
In the news. No, this isn't actually in the news. This is a Netflix series.
Sorry, just to preface this, I wanted to talk about, obviously, not yesterday when you're listening to this, but yesterday when we recorded it, so last Tuesday, there was what would you describe it?
It was a live Q&A event.
With the Education Secretary. I can't remember her name.
Neither can I.
Okay, we'll move on from that. But the new Education Secretary, who sat down and did a Q&A, you were able to submit questions, but there was probably thousands of people in it.
Over 3,000, they said.
And your questions just sort of got...
Bridget
Phillipson. Your questions sort of just got lost a little bit, didn't they?
Everyone was asking the same thing, though.
But yeah, and so my gut instinct from that conversation was it's just more of the same. Is the question when they talked about pay for early year staff, and then she went, oh, actually, most people are leaving the sector not because of pay, but because of workload. Well, I think actually most people are leaving the sector because they probably can go and more working in
elsewhere,
little and doing less hours. Yeah. Because the funding is so short in terms of what it should be. But let's ignore that and let's just blame workload, because that doesn't cost us any money to try and fix. So it didn't feel like a revolutionary new start for education in this country. It just feels like more of the same, if I'm being pessimistic about it. But we'll see. Seemed like a nice, pleasant lady. And a nodding dog friend.
I'm done talking about politics.
I know you are, but I just wanted to nip that one in.
It was nice to listen to it. It was nice to see what she had to say, and I think she recognises there's a problem.
It's nice they did what they did, but will they be doing that in 4 years' time when everybody's shouting at them?
She says she wants it to be a regular thing.
I know, but it's easy to say that now.
True.
Because they can just turn around and say, oh, it's the Tories' fault. Let's blame the people who are predecessors.
Yeah, true.
Now is a very easy time.
It was good that they did it, and I think it was interesting to listen to, but it's all like you say, same with the same. But what I wanted to talk about is a Netflix documentary that's come out about the man with 1,000 children.
Go on then, try and wrap this round how it's relevant.
Has anyone else watched it? I'm hooked. We've got one episode left.
You've got to try and do this without spoiling it.
Okay, so basically there's a man in the Netherlands who is a sperm donor.
Oh, spoiler.
Well, no. He's a sperm donor and has misled families and clinics.
It's modern day Genghis Khan.
About how many donations he has made through clinics and privately. And oh my goodness, I just can't get my head around like potentially 3,000 children. Like what?
Across the globe.
Across the globe, yeah. So if you've not watched it, give it a watch, because
there's not a single man on this planet who's produced as much sperm and put it into Tupperware as this gentleman.
As that man.
He owns the record 100%.
Yeah. So
he is the king of
Ben. You can't say that. You're going to edit that out.
Yeah.
You're an idiot. Then.
So
just bleep that bit out. Okay? Yeah. So yeah, if you've not watched it, it's on Netflix. Give it a watch because it's great.
A creepy guy though.
He has a YouTube channel as well, and that's my favourite part of the whole thing.
It's just creepy. And we should start all videos of, hello, this is my videography.
No, hello, and welcome to my video blog.
I don't know why I gave him like a Borat accent there. Sorry to anybody from the Netherlands.
And welcome to my video blog. Today, I'd like to talk to you about the meaning of life.
It's just how random it is, though. It's just in the middle of like outside the Sydney Opera House. It's like, today we're going to talk about depression. Okay, sure.
But yeah, if you've not watched it, give it a watch. We are laughing about it, but it is quite a serious topic, and it is insane what he's done. So,
but the thing is, it just shows you how fragile and weak the whole system is. You have to sign a little form to consent that you're not doing it anywhere else. But actually, in reality,
like the lady said, there's nothing actually in place to stop you from. It's just guidance.
Which is crazy because, like, the odds of incest, like,
is huge, huge. But in the Netherlands, they are only allowed to have the 25. Opportunity to father 25 children through.
There's a similar number across
sperm banks. You'd like to think it's similar.
But then again, I imagine that if the rules and regulations in like European countries aren't that tight, when we started going to like Tanzania and Ethiopia and Kenya, I can't imagine it's all that tight there.
But one of the sperm clinics had a letter saying that they think he's fathered over 102 at the start, and they were like, "Oh, something's not quite right here."
No.
So yeah, if you've not watched it, I'm pretty sure it's called The Man with 1,000 Children.
Do you know what's quite ironic? What our actual overall topic is about today? Because he is a very expressive man.
He is. I think it became a bit of an addiction, didn't it?
Weird addiction, though, isn't it?
Strange addiction. But yeah, so that's what I wanted to pop into.
It's almost like a power complex for him, isn't it? And control.
Yeah, because he started with his friend and
but I think it's control and power, though, isn't it? Like, he is producing all these children. He has that manipulative ability and that power
over
all these like.
Because a lot of the mothers actually wanted him to have a relationship with the children and know them and know where they came from. And
the lady who's at like the heart of the whole thing was one of those massively. If what she's saying is true, she was really keen for him to be involved.
Yeah, and she was quite upset when he decided, like, no, taking a step away. But yeah, don't want to give. Well, we've pretty much spoiled the whole thing.
I mean, I'll be honest with you. There's not too many spoilers to it. There's a bloke who produces a lot of sperm across the world and gets a lot of people pregnant. Yeah, there's really not much more to it. It's worth watching just because how weird and psychotic the whole thing is.
In the whole process. But we have got one episode left, so I think that's where they'll kind of wrap it up and the court cases.
Can't wrap it up too much though, because the guy's still going. He only produced a YouTube video like the other day.
Yeah, but I don't think he's allowed to. We don't know yet. We've got to watch the court case.
I feel like you can't stop it. Like, there's no international court. Like, you can say you can't do it in this country.
There's photos everywhere now, though. So I feel like if you,
I feel like it still work. I feel like you could just pop over to like Egypt or Cameroon and just crack on. Maybe. But then again, I don't know how much fertility banks operate in those countries. I don't really know.
I've got no idea. But yeah, if you've not watched that, give it a watch because it is interesting.
Okay, should we get into the main bulk of this?
Yes.
show?
What we wanted to talk about today is self-expression. And we went back and forth on this. What is self-expression? How on earth do we want to talk about it? And we've just decided again, we've got a couple of points each that...
Because I started taking it down a pathway that I think freaked you out a little bit, didn't it?
It was too much.
Like, we started talking about free will and like...
Yeah, like that's not... I wanted to talk about school uniforms. So we went in totally different directions and that's why I ended up in the bin. But we got it back out the bin and we dusted it off and we've gone again. So in terms of self-expression, now I think I want to start with this in terms of like what we do in early years.
Right, okay.
And I think in the early years, we do a very good job at allowing children to express themselves. I think there's a lot of freedom of choice. There's a lot of the way that we set our environments out. There's a lot of free flow pay. Toys are accessible to children. Oh my goodness, words have gone. They've got the ability to make decisions on what they play with, how they express themselves creatively and things like that.
Well, the foundations of the curriculum are built around the individual, aren't they?
Exactly.
But we have the freedom to do that.
Yes. I think that's why I'm saying in early years that we allow children to have the freedom of creativity. And that was my first point. I think for self-expression, you have to have that freedom to be creative as well.
Yeah. I think this is sort of coming into the other bits, but to have freedom of creativity and being creative is not the starting point. There's building blocks that lead up to that. Yeah. And that's, again, what we do really well in early years in terms of giving them that secure emotional base, but giving them then opportunities. Yes. And I think those two things working in unison more than anything in terms of emotional security and the resources and the environment together, they produce then that ability to have that confidence and that self-efficacy and all those other elements that then lean its way into creativity. And I think as you transcend up education and schooling, and interestingly, that was a topic of conversation in that Q&A the other day with the education secretary, where we were talking about, I wasn't there, but they were talking about the curriculum, weren't they? And learning more. They referenced early years in terms of wanting to learn from
what we do
in-house is effectively what they were saying, because we're all part of an education tree in the UK. And that was the element I think they're most picking on, that element of self-creativity, focus on the individual and enabling them to be their creative best as human beings.
Yeah.
We foster that and we really go for that. Whereas when you go up the school, the more and more and more senior education becomes up to secondary school, you lose that creativity, you lose that individuality because you become almost a slave to the curriculum, don't you?
Yeah. And it's very much that in early years you can go into different settings and they'll all look different because it will represent the children that they've got. I mean, even going around our nurseries, they're all different because the children in there, the rooms are set up for them to thrive. And depending on the cohort will be depending on what the room and things look like. Whereas when you go to schools, yes, the display boards might be different. Yes, the tables might be in a different shape. But in essence, a school classroom looks like a school classroom. There's nothing that separates that class's individuality and expression of themselves compared to another one.
No.
And especially in secondary school, when you move around the school so much and teachers teach different age groups and stuff, nobody's able to be expressive because you share the classroom with hundreds of other children.
But also, I'm not really sure what teachers can do to make it any better.
They can't because they're stuck in a system that isn't.
That's the thing.
Built for it.
They have to pass exams, and then them teachers are graded, or their performance is tied to the performance of the children in examinations. So if that's what your performance is tied to, you're stuck to a rock and hard place, because why would you focus on anything else but trying to get your children to get the best grades possible?
Oh yeah, this is not a thing on the
creativity,
teachers.
because if my performance was tied to their, I would want them to do the best they can in the exams.
Yeah.
And equally, you want them to do for their own good, because then society judges them based upon what numbers they get at the end of their A levels, effectively, or GCSEs.
No, and it's not a bash on the teachers. It's the system that doesn't allow for creativity as soon as you hit primary school.
But the only way you break away from that is if you start to then
change the curriculum.
Well, it's not even the curriculum, though, is it? Because like we've just spoken about, it's not necessarily the curriculum that's dictating it. It's the final product. It's what we're the reason why we're learning is for an exam.
Yeah.
It's not to develop skills. The skills are a byproduct, I guess. You pick up skills, the ability to do mathematical equations and stuff by getting ready for the exam. So that's not entirely true, but it's not about expressing creativity. It's not about expressing individualism. It's not about harnessing your abilities. It's purely just to get that examination ticked.
Yeah.
Is that right? Is that wrong? It's a quite a deep conversation when you start to approach it from that level. And I'm not sure, because if you got rid of exams, would society necessarily be a better place? I'm not convinced the answer is yes.
I don't know. But I think the first thing for self-expression is that freedom of creativity. And I think moving up the schooling system, we lose it from early years.
Certainly in some areas. Probably in other areas less. Probably in when it comes to English literature, I guess you have a slightly more. But not really, no.
You don't.
But when you get to university, it does creep back in more. When you write dissertations and stuff, there is a slightly more element on being creative with your writing and what you're doing. So I suppose reality is we're quite far one way, and if you put on a spectrum of expression versus conformality and control, we're too much weighted towards that conformality. Whereas in reality, you like to be probably a little bit closer to that middle.
Yeah.
And I think that would probably result in better, and probably would help teachers more, and probably get more enjoyment out from teachers and students alike, because then you've at least got that scope to be more in control of your education and how you want to teach children and how you present learning.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. So that was my first point for self-expression. You wanted to talk a little bit about the fact that no minds are the same.
Yeah, so this sort of bleeds a little bit from my preparation for the class that's coming up. And I often think this is a topic of conversation that can often get lost on people a little bit. When we talk about human nature, it's not really a thing. Human nature doesn't exist, only in our prism that we live in, that we're born in, that we understand. The human brain, from anatomy point of view, I always think there's a difference between the brain and the mind. So the brain is the scientific element of what the shape of the brain is, the functions of it. And yes, we share basic functions across most of humans. They'll have the same brain functions. They'll have the same makeup of the brain. And we share a lot of that with animals and other bits and pieces. So then that has often led scientists in the past to think, well, our brain's the same, we share processes with them, et cetera, et cetera. But for me, when you focus on the mind, no minds are the same. You're born into a society, and your mind then reflects the beliefs, the viewpoints, the makeup of that society you live in, and through experience, that's sort of ingrained into you. But the premise of all humans have the same instincts, that's not true though, is it? If you zoom right out and go to one country versus another country, and the way they approach topics like self-expression, you go to some nations and they have like these big holes in their ears and they have things hanging down, or they paint themselves and it's very tribal, or there's millions of different ways you can pick and look at how minds work, and they're different. Even when it comes to resulting in danger, to run and get out of there. Some nations where the idea of sleep, they sleep when they're in danger, so they avoid it, like a sloth almost.
Yeah.
I can't remember all the examples off the top of my head, but there is lots of different nuances between social sections of society. And so if we come to accept that at some point, that actually we're a result of our environment, we're a result of our society, then that must then way further down within the society itself. Right, so everyone's different. So like my mind and your mind aren't the same. We have different moral compasses. We have different ways of looking at things. We react to things in different ways.
We do.
There aren't fingerprints of emotions. They don't exist. You see these pictures of that's happy, that's sad. But in reality, that's not true. I could photograph, 100 people witnessing the most horrific murder, and then take those photographs somewhere else and say, okay, what do you think that person's experiencing? And some people will look happy, some people will look amazed, some people will look shocked, some people will look horrified. And it will all be different, and you'll pick up those different. And if you go to, like I said, different cultures and different societies, they too will pick up different expressions from that. And it's going down a complicated path, but
we are.
I think that's so when we talk about self-expression, I think it's really important to remember person by person, that looks entirely different.
Yeah.
And the point I'm trying to get to is when you start putting labels on people, when you start putting people into boxes to conform with society, I personally think you go down a very slippery slope and quite a dangerous slope, to the point where it's actually in the book written by Lisa Feldman Barrett, where she actually says if we're going to conform to any labels or any boxes, I'll at least prefer it to be the Hogwarts sorting hat. put me into a house, and she's from Ravenclaw. Surprise. She's very educated, isn't she? I'm not surprised.
Yes, true.
But I just found that interesting when you start putting people into boxes, because it fits with society. It's easy just to categorize people. It makes us feel a little bit better if you can put someone in a box and categorize. It makes you feel in control. Whereas in reality, variance is what rules nature. Variance is what rules human brains. There is no human nature. It's all variance, and everyone is unique and different based upon, like I say, their experiences and their environment, and then how that's constructed.
Yeah. I think that putting people into boxes links quite nicely to the emotional support that we talked about, and those positive relationships and things like that. If someone is surrounded by the support they need and people are there, and there's not that pressure that if they express themselves in certain ways that they're going to be put in a box or whatever that looks like for them, that self-expression becomes easier because they are supported by the people around them. I think that could be we've talked about, we wanted to talk about like the way that people express themselves through sort of hairstyles, clothing, makeup.
Yeah.
That comes down to my third point as well, of confidence. If you have got the emotional support around you and you've got those positive relationships of people that you know will love and care for you no matter how you express yourself, that confidence comes into it, and then you have the confidence to express yourself in however you like. And that's where early years comes into it, in that we spend so long building positive relationships with children and letting them know that it's never them that we're upset with. It's sometimes the behavior, it's sometimes the action that comes with it, it's sometimes the everything that they do as a person we accept because that's them and we care for them. And that's why children can become more expressive, because they feel confident and comfortable in the environment to do so. So I think that kind of resonates as you get older into teenagers and adults, is that if you've got that support network around you, you're more likely to express yourself more confidently, because the people that matter to you the most don't care as much and don't see you as that label that you talked about.
I mean, one thing that is always blows my mind is the power of words. Because words are, we have an ability, through my words, I have an ability to impact your, it's called body budgeting, but what goes on inside your body.
Yeah.
With just power of words, and one-off words, no, but systemically over time, I can even affect your brain through words, because you don't start talking about like abuse, for example, or the other happiness. If you're in an environment where you are abused with words constantly, time over time, the structure of your brain can change for the negative. And that's when we start talking about toxic stress or chronic stress and the negative impact that has on the brain. So it can also have the positive effect, though, constantly having somebody there with positive words, positive affirmation.
So that's why I talk about positive affirmation so much, because it's so important that you hear those things and children hear those things about themselves, that I am strong, I am brave, I am creative, I am loved, I am safe, I am me. Like, I think it's so important that children hear those things, because we don't always know the ins and outs of the environments that people are in and how expressive they can be for themselves. So to be able to give them those positive words and actually rewire the brain into believing these things is really, really important.
And that's the big one. The brain is wired.
Yeah.
And again, this is something that I touch massively on the class, the fact that the brain isn't, often in society we have this view of when when a child is born, the brain is developed, and it is what it is. And you have this part of the brain and this part of the brain, and it's very much cut into chunks and sections, and this is responsible for this and that's responsible for that. It's not that way of looking at it. It's not that simplistic. It's not that black and white. The brain is a network, and what develops that network over time is experience. And that was one of my points where we talk about the importance of experience in terms of self-expression, because if you're expressive and you express yourself, and then you have a positive experience from it, positive affirmation or whatever it might be,
again, aren't you?
you're more likely to do it. The body releases dopamine. These neurotransmitters are positive. It makes you feel happy. More neurons fire. Neurons that fire together, stay together, develops that positive network across your brain. And we're all on the good side of things.
Comes to mind for me with that is that I, if I'm feeling anxious or stressed or get the Sunday scaries, I like to colour.
Yeah.
It really takes my mind off things, and that's a way that I express my anxiety, I suppose, in that I will colour. And I remember...
But again, if as a society we put colouring in a box of it's for children...
Well, that's what I was going to say, is that we had your dad round for dinner and he giggled. He was like, "What are you doing?" And I was like, "I'm colouring." And I could have... It was not in a nasty way at all, but he giggled and was like, "What on earth are you... why are you colouring? You're not a child," type of thing. And I could have taken that in a way that made me see it as a negative.
Yeah.
But I've told myself over so many years that it really does help me. And then I get, like, yourself bought me a new colouring book and some pens, and that re-establishes that, no, it does help me and it is something, a way that I express myself. So I think you're right in terms of the experience you have with however you're expressing yourself, and that's just one way, but it does have an impact on it. So say if I was colouring and you and everyone around me kept telling me, oh, that's for children. Why are you doing that? That's silly, etc., etc. I'm less likely to continue to do it.
Yeah, I mean, one of the greatest lessons from Lisa Feldman Barrett's book, not that one, I was kept looking for it, but it's not actually there. The
Wow.
7.5 lessons
Yeah.
about the brain or something like that. One of the greatest takeaways from the end of it, and it's something we're going to talk about next week on the podcast, is social construct and the fact that the world we live in is entirely made up in our own brains or by
100%.
somebody else's brains.
Yeah.
If you actually deeply think about everything we do, even to the point she uses an example, if I remember right off the top of my head, land borders as an example of social construct. There's no actual lines in the world. Well, I guess there is some geographical like mountains and stuff, but in general, there's no line that runs from across Canada and the United States to define what is a land border.
I suppose it's like the airspace.
Yeah, but it's all made up. Like we pay this money, which isn't a real thing, or I guess you could say it's tied to gold, but whatever. You pay this money over the internet electronically, and it goes to whoever else, and then this gives you the ability to get on a plane. It's all socially constructed. That is what it means, and that's what it does. It's all made up in even the language you're using today to communicate with each other. These are noises that have been socially constructed to enable us to communicate with one another.
Yeah.
Humans weren't born with, they were born with the ability to learn and make noises, but they weren't born with the English language.
No.
It's all constructed in our own brains.
People start to express themselves.
Yeah, but that's the ability thing that we have as humans. We have the ability to compress information. Goes into the front of your brain, compresses right into the back of it, and it compresses large amounts of sense data and then feeds it back into your neurons as smaller information. Anyway, very sciencey, off topic.
That's okay.
But in general, that's the interesting thing. It's all constructed information. It's all constructed knowledge. It's not real. So then when you are getting hung up about people's thoughts and opinions about your creativity and your self-expression, your hair or whatever it might be, it doesn't matter.
I read a quote once that said, or it was, I don't know, something online that said, someone else's opinion of me is none of my business.
Yeah.
And I think that is a lovely way of thinking about it. And it's really hard to get to that point. And I don't think many people are at that point. I'm not at that point. But someone else's opinion of me is not my business.
No,
it shouldn't affect.
As a society, we're very good at saying other people's opinions don't matter. Like, go queen, you do whatever you want. Like, but
how many people have you said go queen to? I've never said go queen to anyone. You go queen.
But it's not actually true because inherently as human beings, we're incredibly social human beings. We crave social acceptance, some more than others because of, like I say, experience, have been hurt in the past. So you withdraw and protect yourself more. Yeah. But without society or without socialness, we wouldn't survive as human beings.
No.
Look at the Romanian orphanages and those children that got just left, and they had all sorts of social, emotional, physical defects. But they did meet the primary needs of what we think children need in terms of food and water and sustenance. But that isn't true. That isn't all we need. No. Social is a massive element of human development. Like, ginormous, not more than food and water because you'll die, but without socialness, you pretty much die as well, like parts of you.
Yeah.
So being part of society, accepting society is something that as human beings, we are naturally wired for and crave and need. It's like another form of sustenance in itself. Yeah. It's almost a basic human right and need. So that is why we all crave. We all want to be liked. We all want to be accepted.
That's why self-expression can be difficult though, because you don't know what the acceptance is going to look like from the other side. How willing
are you to risk it? And it goes down to the minute things, but we all share it, so it's actually not minute. It's like fashion trends. Fashion trends are just us wanting to fit in and accept that. You know, you have the leaders of it, but they're still looking for social acceptance for people to be like, oh my God, look how cool he is, and then everyone copies. Because, and it's even like a new haircut, like getting a new haircut when you're in secondary school, like middle of secondary school.
It's huge.
Was the most frightening thing in the world, you know, like, oh, I like that haircut, but I'm not going to get it because someone might call me names.
Yeah.
Like, but that's true. Like so many people, like that's something that resonates with them.
Thing, yeah. So that was kind of our points on self-expression.
And a uniform fits into that.
Yeah, and I just wanted to touch upon there's different ways we've sort of discussed that we are able to express ourselves and or not express ourselves. And like we said, school uniforms come into that, because there's pros and cons to school uniforms. You've got that the pros are that everyone is the same, and that the family that can't afford designer or the brand new things don't get nobody picks on them for not having those branded things.
I personally think school uniform's a good thing. Personally.
Yeah.
Because I think it protects those that, it puts everybody in a level playing field.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying.
And I'm not one to want to crush people's self-expression, but it just means everyone can fit it. I don't know.
I think uniforms are a good thing. I don't always think the rules and the boundaries of it are a good thing. I don't understand why somebody can't dye their hair a different colour, because that's a form of self-expression.
It comes into control then, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Like a headmaster thinks you look silly with pink hair, so bans it.
Stuff, fine. I understand from a health and safety point of view in PE, rings, bracelets, necklaces, fine. But sat in a classroom, why does it affect a child's learning? Is it because we're saying that not everyone can afford to do it, or we say that's fine? But I really don't understand why hair and jewellery should affect the uniform policies.
Because
it's the whole thing about girls wearing vest tops and strappy tops, because it can be a distraction for people in their classroom.
No, I think
but that's a real thing.
I understand what you're saying, but to go back to jewellery, I don't think there's a need to turn up to school with all your jewellery on.
That's not what I'm saying. But if someone has a necklace that they like and they want to wear,
that's different to
but why
volume of like wearing, like, I think common sense has to come into that a little bit.
I understand what you're saying. I think it's just,
if you turn up looking like Ali G to the classroom,
if it's going to be a distraction to you and your learning day, yes.
You can't actually write properly if you've got like 73 fake diamond rings on. Like,
but let's talk about that. Go back to expressing yourself through hair and makeup.
If you're putting a policy and procedure together, you have to draw the line somewhere.
Yeah, but your hair and makeup policy, why can't people express themselves through hair and makeup?
But again, there has to be a line somewhere. What happens if, Charlie in the classroom is like a massive neo-Nazi and he puts a swastika on the back of his head?
Okay, yeah, fine.
Like, I know I'm going to a massive extreme,
yeah,
but you've got to have a policy and procedure that captures that. You can't just say, oh, well, obviously, because where do you draw the line? There has to be somewhere.
Racist.
Yes, undertones. Right. Okay, what happens if Phil comes in with an England flag dyed on his head? Is that allowed?
I don't feel like the England flag portrays the death of...
No, that's what I'm saying. Is an England flag allowed?
Yeah.
Okay, is an Israel flag allowed?
Same, yeah.
I know, do you know what I mean? That's a little...
Okay.
Like, it's just, there's a fine line.
Okay, we could say you can't paint flags on your head, but if you want to dye your hair blue, I've got no problem with it.
Right.
Yeah?
Okay. Yeah, okay. I feel like there's a fine line. But
And what about heavy makeup?
Is it necessary?
Or boys wearing makeup?
I think you just got to treat it. Is it necessary? I think, is heavy makeup necessary? Like,
if you've
got maths in the morning, if you've got maths in the morning, and then straight after lesson 2 you've got PE, you've got heavy makeup on.
Yeah.
And it's raining, and you're going to go play hockey.
What you look like afterwards is your problem, not mine.
But then they're not in lesson 3 because they're late faffing about doing their makeup again. I just think we're talking about 13, 14, 15-year-olds going to school.
If that's how they feel confident and how they want to express themselves, I don't have a problem with it.
I think the biggest problem there is you've got a 15-year-old who needs to put a massive amount of makeup on to feel confident.
Yes, that probably is an underlying issue, but if that is how they feel confident, because the experience they've got is that people wear makeup and they feel good, and it might not even be a confidence thing, it might just make them feel good. Might just enjoy wearing makeup, and wearing makeup is actually quite a creative thing. Like, creative makeup looks are really hard to do for people.
Just because it makes you feel good doesn't mean that it's something you can do all the time.
But when you feel good...
Having a nap at 10 o'clock makes me feel good.
When you feel good... No, it doesn't. You don't like sleeping during the day.
Okay.
That was a lie. See, that was a lie.
Some people would let them feel good.
Feeling good about yourself and feeling confident, you're more likely to learn because you're feeling good and ready for the day.
I know, but there's a fine line. We have to have some level of conformality when you're talking about teaching thousands of school children in this classroom.
I fully understand
They
that.
can't just,
but
actually, miss, I didn't feel great, so I went and put some blusher on. That's why I'm half an hour late.
I'm not saying that someone's out of makeup, out of the lesson. If they still turn up to school on time, they're in every lesson, their grades are good. Like, why does it matter what is on their face? That's where I think with school uniforms anyway.
Yeah. You wouldn't have the same opinion of in the workplace, though.
Doesn't bother me.
I think
we have a variety of people. Some people wear lots of makeup to work.
Yeah, but professionalism-wise, if someone comes in 3 days of the week with makeup looking absolutely bum on it, presented, and then the other 2 days of the week look like...
That's what I look like.
It's not, though. I don't know. It's a difficult one.
Do you know what? And I don't want to be rude here or sexist, but because you never had to deal with your face looking different on different days, it bothers you.
Yeah, for men it is a lot easier, yeah.
Whereas I can do 3 different things, 3 different steps in the morning, and I will look totally different.
Yeah. I don't know. Maybe it's old hat. Maybe saying that it shouldn't be the judge. I just think I would hope having a 50-year-old girl, her confidence isn't tied to physical appearance. But that will be down to her
experiences.
Yeah, that's why.
Also, social media is massive about that now because people use social media to express themselves and show off their creativity, and it's fantastic. And I spend hours watching people do their makeup. I'm not good at it. Like I don't spend hours doing my own makeup, but I love the fact that people are creative and share that with others. And then when you see people be negative about that, I just think, I just don't get it.
It's always a clash of generations, isn't it? That's what it comes down to.
Well, we're not in different generations.
No, but it becomes that clash of generations. Because if you go back, I don't know, to the 70s, I don't know, maybe I'm being really, maybe people from who went to school in the 1970s are going to shout at me on the internet here. But makeup, I can't believe was that big of a thing in the 60s. I would assume. I can't believe it was as easy to get
in that box as you.
I can't believe it was as easy to get hold of and attainable and affordable back 20 years after the Second World War than it is nowadays. This is what I'm trying to say. A lot of it can be manufactured in China, blah, blah, blah. And that's what I'm trying to say. Like, I think over time, maybe be interested to see what it looks like in 100 years' time.
Maybe. But yeah.
It's an interesting topic of self-expression. And hairstyles fit into that same...
Yeah.
Makeup, clothing. So would you get rid of school uniform?
No. I wouldn't get rid of school uniforms. I understand the need for school uniforms so that, like you say, the playing field is fair. I would loosen the rules around self-expression in other ways.
What did you wear in school? What was your school uniform? Because I think that probably has an impact.
Trousers, black shoes, or skirt. I never wore a skirt. You'll very rarely see me in dresses and skirts. I'm a trouser girl. Shirt, tie, blazer.
You see, we had polo shirts.
In secondary school?
Yeah.
See, I wore a tie and a blazer.
No. See, we wore polo shirts and trousers, like smart black trousers.
Yeah.
We didn't have to.
So you had a more relaxed look anyway. We had to have a blazer with the tie, and your tie had to be done in a certain way. And
no,
if your top button wasn't done up, and I just think that's uncomfortable. Like, it was not a comfortable. You used to learn to pull your tie up high enough so it looked like your top button was done up.
No, but how horrible was this? When we joined secondary schools in my year, that year, they must have done it late, decided to go from shirt and tie to polos. But because year 7, us had already bought all of our uniform, they enforced that year 7 had to wear shirt and tie. All the rest of the school could wear polo tops. See, there you are, trying to fit into this new school, like first big school, blah, blah, blah. And you're walking around with shirt and tie on, and all the other children are wearing polo tops.
Yeah.
And so you can imagine how much ridicule and
yeah.
What did you used to get called when you used to do the ties right up?
Peanut.
Get peanutted by year 8s, year 9s all the time.
And I think that's what I mean. Like, our school uniform was, and it's interesting because I went straight into a job where I could wear trainers, leggings, polo tops, fleece, jumpers in early years.
Always wore uniform though.
Yeah, I've always worn uniform in the nurseries. Yeah. But so much more relaxed.
See, previous jobs, I used to hate having to wear shirt and tie.
Exactly.
But you could be expressive, I guess. You could be funky with it.
But if someone came into work in your office with makeup on for 3 days and 2 didn't and looked scruffy afterwards, you would be questioning it.
Professionalism, yeah, at some point, yeah.
But
that's just what you're indoctrinated into. Yeah.
Whereas there are some days where I can't be bothered to do certain things and I don't do them, but I'm still here to do my job and do the best I can. Does it affect?
I guess it's also linked though, isn't it? Like mood and the way you display yourself in terms of, you know, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, your boss is really happy, vibrant, and then Mondays and Fridays she's really miserable and snappy. Like that wouldn't be acceptable.
Did you dye her hair to reflect?
No,
it?
but that wouldn't be acceptable.
Yeah, but that's not about a person expressing themselves through their clothing, their makeup and their hair.
It's consistency, I guess, isn't it though?
Yeah, but then people have down days and people have off days. If it's consistently a Monday to Friday, you question.
If it's consistent, that's what I'm trying to say.
Question that, but yeah.
Okay. So the path
We've rambled on.
And I guess that also ties into politics and sports and other different bits.
Yeah, you can express yourself which party you support, which football teams you support, whichever sport it is you're supporting. Supporting. It's just a different way of expressing yourself, isn't it? So the football team I support gets lots of negative.
Is it a method of expression?
Do you know what is a method of expression? And I find is really therapeutic is it is taking anger out on football players when they're playing football. That's a form of expression. Stay on side.
Is it?
What are you doing?
Is that self-expression?
Yeah, that's a great way to express myself because they can't hear me. I don't care about them I do care about them as people, obviously. But like when I go home and they go home, at the end of the day, it doesn't matter.
They're just really well-paid counsellors, aren't they?
Yeah.
For thousands of angry people.
Do you know what? I often sit there in the stadium and I do say to my sister and my dad, we're all paying money to sit and watch people run around and we get so emotionally invested in it and it can literally take over your entire life. I think you, for a start, have no leg to stand on whether sport takes over your life. And we've actually done really badly with sport this year.
We've had a bad year.
We've had a really bad year. I'm hoping next season it's good for everyone. Our NFL team lost.
In the Super Bowl.
Your basketball team got really far in the playoffs and then got knocked out because everyone got injured.
We had no players.
My team lost in the playoff knockouts.
Yeah.
You lost at the playoff final. England shattered our dreams.
Oh God, yeah, I'd add that.
We've had 5 this year between us.
Sounds about right.
So next year, but
that's not an expression of self because I didn't choose to support Leeds United or England. You don't choose. Well, most people.
But I think
it's a reflection more of society and where you're from and your
yes, you say that, but it's also like if I don't like football. I mean, I don't like basketball, and you watch basketball. That's not one way that I want to take my time and spend doing. So for my self-expression, I express that that's not a sport I'm interested in. And a lot of people will express that they're not interested in football, that they don't care about it. That's not part of that's not how they wish to spend their time.
Right, yeah, I get what you're saying. So it's part of the football as a thing is part of the personality.
Yes, yeah. So like, I like football, I like watching football, but I'd much rather watch football live than on the telly. That's how I like to express my opinion on it.
It's because you've got poor concentration.
Yes.
That's partly the reason. Yeah. Okay.
We've rambled for a while. Let us know your thoughts on self-expression. How do you feel like children express themselves? How do you express yourself? Do you feel confident to do so? What hinders it? Let us know.
Self-expression is a really difficult one.
It's an interesting
That's why we struggled with it so much because it's tied to so many
different things,
big questions in society and big things.
Yeah.
Because one person's form of self-expression is another person's. What's the anti of self-expression? Do you know what I mean? Like as human beings, we want to control. Like that is what a lot of it comes down to, control. So when someone expresses themselves and you don't like it.
Oh, it's a bit like us with music.
Go on.
We have different music tastes.
So how's that anything like what I just said?
And the way we express ourselves with music, because I don't like your music, I ask you to stop. And you don't like my music and ask me to stop, but that's how I'm expressing
Emily
myself.
can't sit in a car for longer than 3 seconds without having some music playing.
I like to sing.
Yeah, but not every car ride has to be a karaoke session.
It does. I think everyone will disagree.
I don't think they will. Okay. Right, we've rambled on about self-expression a lot.
Let's wrap it up.
Head over to the Earliers Network and check out my class that's coming very soon.
Yes, and have a lovely week. And we will see you in the next one.
Ciao.
Bye.